Hello everyone. This is Six Path Weeb, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, we're diving into part 3 of our ongoing fanfic series, What If Naruko Had Been Born with Wizard Powers? Get ready for an epic blend of ninjutsu and magic as we continue exploring this unique twist on the Naruto universe. Disclaimer, the content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Alright, let's jump in. Naruko was feeling a mix of anticipation and anxiety. She was facing one of the most well-known figures in the shinobi world, Momochi Zabuza, also known as the Silent Mist. Though Naruko had been eager to test her skills in a real challenge, she couldn't ignore the overwhelming presence Zabuza carried. His reputation for stealth and power preceded him, and even for a capable ninja like her, this encounter was going to be a serious test. Zabuza studied Naruko carefully. This young ninja had appeared seemingly out of nowhere and activated a powerful chakra barrier that had nullified his water-style technique. It was unheard of. The only somewhat similar technique in the shinobi world was the Hyuga clan's kaiden, but even that involved spinning chakra, while this barrier did not. It was a completely different application. Feeling the soreness in his shoulder, Zabuza focused chakra into it to ease the tension. Then he reached behind his back and drew his massive blade, pointing it directly at the girl standing calmly inside the shield with an unfamiliar weapon aimed right at him. "Who are you, kid?" he asked, his tone serious as he subtly released some of his chakra presence, testing her reaction. Naruko swallowed her nerves but maintained a steady posture. "Uzumaki Naruko of the Hidden Leaf Village," she replied confidently, shifting her stance and drawing her second weapon while carefully channeling chakra into both. "And you must be the Silent Mist, Momochi Zabuza. Am I right?" Zabuza gave a low chuckle. "Didn't expect someone so young to recognize me," he said, his voice carrying a mixture of amusement and interest. Then his tone turned more serious. "Step aside. I don't have any business with you. My mission is elsewhere." Naruko shook her head with a determined smile. "No can do. My mission is to protect Mr. Tazuna. If you want to reach him, you'll have to get through me first." A surge of chakra behind Naruko alerted her to the presence of her teammate, Yakumo. Without hesitation, she extended her chakra shield to encompass Team 7, Yakumo, and Tazuna. As she stepped out of the barrier, its surface rippled with a warm orange glow before gently concealing everyone inside it from sight. Zabuza blinked in surprise as his target seemed to vanish. His gaze narrowed on Naruko, convinced she had something to do with it. "That wasn't the wisest choice," he said before rushing toward her with impressive speed. Naruko knew she had to keep her distance. In a flash of light, she vanished and reappeared a few meters away. She raised her weapon and began firing low-powered, chakra-infused projectiles, not to harm, but to slow Zabuza down and buy time to think. Zabuza quickly turned and intercepted the shots with his blade, the force of the projectiles making his arm vibrate slightly. When she saw that her efforts weren't connecting, Naruko halted her fire and channeled lightning chakra into one of her weapons, preparing a more focused technique. Zabuza, noticing the pause, rested his blade on his shoulder. "Interesting little gadgets you've got there," he commented. "Mind telling me what they are?" Naruko tilted her head and smiled. "And spoil the mystery? Where's the fun in that?" she replied playfully before unleashing another round of shots to keep him on his toes. But this time, Zabuza was ready and sidestepped the attack before lunging forward with his blade. Naruko raised both weapons in an X formation to block, sparks flying as the blade clashed against them. Though the weapons held, the force of the strike made her arms tremble. Zabuza was impressed. "Sturdy tools for someone your age," he noted, then tried to press his advantage, applying more strength. But before he could follow through, a figure appeared beside him and launched a precise kick, forcing him to retreat. It was Anko. Naruko let out a sigh of relief, her arms still tingling. She allowed the lightning energy to fade from her weapon and reholstered both with a fluid motion. "Took you long enough, Anko Nichin." "He's stronger than I expected," Naruko admitted, her voice light but focused. Anko grinned and flipped a kunai into a reverse grip. "You're facing a high-level shinobi, Naruko." "Of course, he's tough," she said with a smirk before charging into a close-quarters skirmish with Zabuza. Naruko watched the fast-paced exchange with awe. Kicks, punches, and swings blurred together. Zabuza's fighting style was powerful and adaptable, while Anko met each attack with quick thinking and agility. Zabuza launched a feint that caused Anko to dodge. He immediately switched grip and prepared to follow up, but a glowing chain of chakra wrapped around his weapon mid-swing. He traced the chain back to Naruko, who was standing firm, holding one end and smiling confidently. Well. Chakra chains now? Zabuza raised an eyebrow. You're full of surprises, huh? Naruko didn't respond, simply gripping the chain tighter and engaging in a tug-of-war to prevent him from using his weapon freely. Anko took the opportunity to step back and reassess the situation. Zabuza, impressed but not deterred, channeled more chakra into his arms and pulled back hard. Caught off guard, Naruko was yanked forward. But instead of panicking, she raised her white weapon and gave a cheerful, "Hi there," before releasing a burst of energy. Zabuza brought his blade up just in time to shield himself. But in that moment, Anko swooped in with a powerful kick that sent him sliding across the water. He regained his balance and crouched, clutching his side from the impact. Naruko saw her opening. She dissolved the chakra chain and quickly drew both weapons again. Holding them forward, she charged her chakra into the barrels, focusing her energy with pinpoint control as the weapons shimmered with power. She wasn't out to hurt Zabuza, just to protect her team and complete the mission. And in that moment, standing strong with determination in her heart, Naruko showed exactly what it meant to be a ninja of the hidden leaf. Twin explosions. Twin explosions, Naruko shouted, firing concentrated chakra projectiles from her specialized tools, aimed directly at Zabuza's feet. The rogue shinobi immediately noticed and quickly calculated the trajectory. Realizing what the blonde kunoichi was planning, he tried to dodge, but it was already too late. Both chakra projectiles hit the surface of the water, causing a powerful shockwave that sent Zabuza flying back toward the lakeshore, landing with a loud thud against a tree. Naruko knew that while Zabuza's agility might help him avoid a direct hit, the aftershock would surely disrupt his balance and coordination, and it did. As soon as she saw Zabuza impacted by the blast, Naruko quickly charged her tools, ebony and ivory, with concentrated lightning chakra. She spotted Zabuza struggling to stand, so she immediately fired. The chakra struck his chest with enough force to send him back into the tree once again. This time, the surge of electricity left him screaming in discomfort. The energy pulsed through him, and before long, his body relaxed into unconsciousness from the strain. Naruko finally allowed herself to breathe, sinking to the ground as the tension left her body. The rush of adrenaline faded, leaving her feeling exhausted. A warm hand rested on her shoulder, and she turned to see Anko looking at her with concern. "You all right, kiddo?" Anko asked. Naruko gave a tired but reassuring smile and nodded. "Yeah, I'm okay. Just a bit worn out from the fight," she replied, not wanting her adopted sister to worry. She looked back at the now unconscious Zabuza. "You might want to check on him. I used an overpowered stun blast, so he should be out, but it's best to be sure." Anko nodded and stepped toward Zabuza with a kunai drawn, staying cautious. Before she could get close, 3 senbone needles suddenly flew out from the trees and struck Zabuza's neck. He tensed briefly, then collapsed again, completely still. Startled, Anko instantly went on guard. She felt movement to her left and instinctively threw her kunai. A metallic clang echoed through the area, followed by silence. A figure stepped from the trees, casually twirling Anko's kunai by the ring at the handle with one finger. Naruko watched the stranger carefully, intrigued by the calm and composed manner in which they moved. The person wore a mist hunter nin mask and a dark green battle kimono. Their long hair was pulled into a neat bun at the top. Before anyone could speak, the masked ninja addressed them. "My apologies for the interruption," the hunter nin said, gesturing to Zabuza. "I've been tracking him for some time. I'm grateful that you weakened him, it made my task much easier. I didn't mean to interfere, but completing the mission was essential." Anko studied the figure before turning back to Zabuza. She placed a finger gently on his neck, searching for a pulse. After a moment, she straightened. "He's not responding," she murmured, then addressed the hunter nin. "So, I assume you're taking him back for processing?" The hunter nin nodded and casually tossed the kunai back to Anko, who caught it without flinching. "Yes, and thank you. I'll make sure your village receives credit for aiding in the mission." With that, the hunter nin pressed a hand to Zabuza's chest, and both vanished in a swirl of water. Naruko now sat contentedly munching on a stick of dengo while watching her teammate Yakumo tend to the injured nearby. "How are they doing, Yakumo-chan?" she asked curiously. "They're okay for the most part. Except for Uchiha-san. Sai told me he got hit pretty hard during the fight, so he's got a slight concussion," Yakumo replied, examining Sasuke with a diagnostic technique she had learned under Lady Tsunade's guidance. "He also has a few broken ribs, a shoulder injury, and some energy loss. Looks like Zabuza really gave him a challenge. Naruko stifled a quiet chuckle at the list of injuries. And Kakashi-sensei? He's been quiet for a while, she asked, glancing toward the resting Jounin. No serious injuries, Yakumo replied while healing Sasuke's ribs. He just pushed his chakra too far, especially with how much he used his Sharingan. Combine that with Zabuza's technique, and it left him drained. He'll be fine after a good rest. Naruko nodded and headed over to where Anko was speaking with the bridge builder. Hey, Nichin. What's the plan now? Naruko asked as she sat beside her older sister figure. Anko gave a casual shrug. We'll head to Tazana's place once Yakumo finishes her healing work. It's just a few miles north, so we should be able to reach it by nightfall, though we'll need to take it slow because of the injuries. Want me to use the hoverboard to get us there faster? Naruko offered, though she hesitated. She wasn't keen on showing off her inventions unless it was absolutely necessary. Anko shook her head. No need, kiddo. Let's keep the tech hidden for now. Kakashi's trustworthy, but I'm not so sure about his students. You can just levitate them like before, quiet and simple. Naruko grinned. Got it. Once Yakumo-chan finishes patching up the Uchiha, I'll make stretchers and move them with chakra. That way, we'll move faster and keep everyone comfortable. It took an hour for Yakumo to tend to the Uchiha, preparing him for travel. It wasn't a quick procedure given the extent of his injuries, but it was sufficient to prevent further complications during transport. Naruko crafted 3 stretchers for the injured, surprising both Sakura and Tazana, the latter expressing his astonishment aloud. How in the world did you do that? Sakura asked in disbelief, unable to comprehend how her former classmate created something out of thin air without using hand seals. Naruko simply shrugged as she gently levitated Sai, Sasuke, and Kakashi onto their respective stretchers. It's my unique ability, chakra majutsu. I can do things most shinobi can't. That's all I'm willing to share for now, she replied calmly, offering no further detail, knowing Sakura's tendency to overshare. With a graceful wave of her hand, she levitated the stretchers and turned toward Anko, who had been speaking with Tazana. Anko Nichin. I'm ready. Great work, kid. Can you keep them afloat until we reach Tazana's home? At our pace, it'll take around 2 hours, Anko asked with a nod of approval. Easy. I could carry them from Wave to Konoha and back without breaking a sweat, Naruko replied confidently. Anko smiled at her determination and turned to address the group, or at least those who were conscious. Alright, here's the plan. Tazana and I will lead since only he knows the way. Sakura and Yakumo will stay in the middle with the injured. Naruko, you'll cover the rear, Anko instructed. Everyone nodded in agreement. Naruko then used her telekinesis to carefully position the stretchers between Sakura and Yakumo. Maintaining the levitation was no trouble, thanks to her intense training with the Hokage and the Nine Tails. She was more than capable of protecting the rear in case of unexpected encounters. Their journey took slightly over 2 hours, as they moved cautiously. Tazana had warned them that Gato had strong influence over the island, and Anko didn't want to risk an ambush. When they finally arrived, Tazana eagerly introduced them to his daughter, Tsunami. Naruko couldn't help but blush a little when Tazana described her as a super ninja with amazing abilities. Despite her initial shock at the sight of floating stretchers, Tsunami quickly guided the injured to a spare room where Yakumo could treat them without disturbance. Naruko created 3 comfortable medical beds, as the room's original furniture wasn't suitable for recovery. Yakumo then gave Naruko a list of what she needed: fresh bandages, pillows, medical gowns, and similar supplies, which the blonde created cheerfully and without hesitation. An hour later, Naruko sat with Anko on the rooftop of Tazana's house, giving Yakumo the quiet she needed to focus. So what's next? Yakumo-chan said Kakashi and Sai should be awake tomorrow, but Sasuke will need at least 3 full days of rest before he can move around properly, Naruko said, frowning as she surveyed the quiet village. We can't act just yet, kid. But once we've rested and regrouped, we can make a plan to deal with Gato. He's the main issue here. Once he's out of the picture, the bridge project can move forward without interference. Still, I think we have something else to consider, Anko replied with a serious tone. Something else? Naruko asked curiously. I thought we were only dealing with Gato now. That's what worries me. I don't think we've seen the last of Zabuza, Anko said, her expression clouded with concern. Naruko looked confused. But the hunter nin took him away, right? Isn't that their job? Yes, but that's where the issue lies. A proper hunter nin is supposed to handle everything on the spot, including confirming the mission. But the one who took Zabuza didn't do that. He just left with him. And the tool he used didn't look like it was meant to end a fight, Anko explained. Naruko's eyes widened in realization. Maybe we should ask Yakumo about it. She's trained as a medical ninja, she'd know more about those tools. Exactly, Anko nodded. Senbons are often used by medics. I'm hoping she can help us figure out if something's off. Let's go check. I think she's done treating Sasuke, Naruko said with a small chuckle. I still can't believe he thought he could handle Zabuza on his own. You mentioned before that he tends to be a bit too confident, Anko said with a light laugh. Maybe this experience will help him grow. Let's go see if Yakumo's free. With a silent leap, the two of them descended from the rooftop and walked into the house. They greeted Tsunami, who was preparing dinner in the kitchen, and walked past Inari, who sat quietly at the table. Climbing the stairs to the makeshift infirmary, they entered the room quietly. Naruko saw Yakumo wrapping a bandage around Sai's head. Hey, Yakumo-chan. Can we talk for a moment? There's something important we want to ask you, she said gently. No problem, Naruko-san. I'm just about finished here. I'll join you in a second, Yakumo replied, continuing her work with practiced focus. Naruko simply nodded, then created a cozy sofa in the corner, where she and Anko sat down to wait. After about 10 minutes, Yakumo finished and turned to them, looking a little tired. She popped a small energy pill into her mouth to recover. What did you need to ask me? She said, sitting down across from them. What can you tell us about Senbons? Anko asked, her tone serious and focused. What exactly are you getting at? You need to be more specific, said Yakumo as she sat at the foot of Sai's medical bed. Is it possible to use senbon needles to seriously harm someone? Anko asked, her voice unusually serious, something Yakumo noticed immediately. Senbon needles are generally used in medical techniques. Some shinobi, especially combat medics, pair them with a form of acupuncture to immobilize opponents. But to directly answer your question, no, senbons can't be used to end a life. They're typically for disabling an opponent, not for anything beyond that, explained Yakumo thoughtfully. Why are you asking such a random question? Anko and Naruko exchanged a meaningful look before Anko finally spoke. I think Zabuza might still be around. Yakumo's expression sharpened. She hadn't been able to observe the battle between Naruko, Anko, and Zabuza directly, as she was focused on maintaining an illusion and tending to the wounded. However, she had listened carefully to the reports from both Naruko and Anko as they made their way back to Tazuna's home. What makes you think that? She asked, her voice now matching Anko's seriousness. Because the hunter nin used 3 senbon needles on Zabuza, Naruko explained calmly. Yakumo turned toward her quickly. Where were they aimed? At the neck, Naruko replied. Yakumo noticed the concern on her teammate's face. That explains it, Yakumo said after a pause. Zabuza is most likely still alive. If what you described is accurate, then he was placed in a state that mimics deep unconsciousness, often used by highly skilled medical practitioners through acupuncture. It's a technique developed for advanced healing in patients with serious illnesses, though it's rarely practiced now because of the side effects. Naruko was about to ask something when a tired voice interrupted from one of the medical beds. What kind of side effects? Asked Kakashi, trying to sit up. Kakashi-san, you're not supposed to be awake yet, Yakumo said gently as she ran a quick diagnostic technique over his torso to assess his chakra levels. You're still recovering and need rest. Kakashi shook his head and offered a tired smile. Don't worry. I'll stay right here until you say otherwise. I woke up during your conversation. Based on Naruko and Anko's observations, I agree, Zabuza may not be gone. Now, could you explain more about those side effects? Yakumo sighed and handed him a chakra pill, which he accepted without question. The primary reason that technique isn't used anymore is the lengthy recovery time after being brought out of the state, she explained. Seeing the questioning looks on their faces, she continued. This deep unconsciousness halts most of the body's natural functions. It's why they call it death-like, though it's important to understand that it doesn't bring harm in itself. The longer a person stays in that state, however, the more time their body needs to recover. Research suggests that staying in this condition for 30 minutes can require a full week of healing. More time means more strain. So, if that's the case, Zabuza might be resting for a week before he can move again? Anko asked hopefully, though her smile faded as Yakumo shook her head. It might take a week normally, but a skilled medical shinobi can shorten that healing time significantly using chakra-based techniques, Yakumo explained. It's likely Zabuza has such an ally, or perhaps the hunter nin who helped him is a trained medic as well, especially if they use senbone needles precisely. Then that means Zabuza has more than just mercenaries helping him, Naruko said thoughtfully, lightly touching her holstered weapon. This might be more complicated than we thought. Kakashi nodded. Naruko's probably right. Even if the hunter Nin is healing Zabuza, it'll still take time, especially since Zabuza sustained other injuries during the earlier encounter. I'd estimate a week, give or take a few days, before he's ready to show up again. And when he does, it'll likely be at the bridge where Tazuna spends most of his time. He turned to Yakumo. When will Sasuke and Sai be able to resume training? Sai should be fine by tomorrow, Yakumo responded. He only had a minor concussion, and I've already treated it. A good night's rest should do the trick. Uchiha will need about 3 days to fully recover. His injuries were a bit more severe after confronting Zabuza directly. She shook her head lightly. It wasn't a smart move for a Genin to take on someone with that level of skill head-on. That sounds a bit harsh, Kakashi replied with a frown. Naruko also fought Zabuza. If you saw the battle, you'd notice Naruko only intended to delay Zabuza until Anko-sensei arrived. She used long-range tools to maintain her distance and kept herself out of danger. Anko arrived in time to take over the battle with Naruko supporting her. That's teamwork and smart planning, not recklessness, Yakumo replied firmly, clearly standing up for her teammate. Kakashi raised his hands with a small smile. All right. You're right, I apologize. Yakumo simply gave a curt nod and moved over to check on Sasuke's condition. Meanwhile, Anko and Naruko shared a quiet smile. It was rare to see Yakumo openly express concern for her teammates, but they appreciated her loyalty. So, Kakashi, what's your strategy? We need to plan for Zabuza and Gato. The sooner we resolve this, the better, Anko said. Kakashi shrugged slightly. I'm open to ideas. I'm still thinking this through. Naruko suddenly snapped her fingers. I forgot to check in with the Hokage. She placed a hand over her communicator and began channeling chakra. Hey, Grandpa Hokage? Can you hear me? Static filled the line for a few seconds. Naruko focused more chakra into the communicator. Can you hear me now, Grandpa? There was a pause, then the Hokage's voice came through, though faint. Naruko? There's a bit of static. I can barely hear you. Naruko increased the chakra flow. How about now, Grandpa? Is this better? Loud and clear, Naruko-chan. Are you in wave right now? Asked the Hokage, clear relief in his voice. Yeah, Gigi. Sorry it took me a while to contact you. We ran into some complications on the way here, Naruko replied, before launching into a detailed explanation of what had happened, starting from their encounter with Zabuza to their arrival in Wave. It took the Hokage a moment to respond after the report, but when he did, it surprised Naruko. Naruko-chan, did you happen to have a spare communicator like the one installed on my desk? The Hokage asked curiously. Well, yeah. I have 2 of them in my lab right now. Why do you ask, Gigi? Naruko asked, puzzled by the sudden inquiry. Do you think you could retrieve one using your abilities? I have new directives for this mission, and I'd like everyone to hear them clearly. Sure. Give me a moment, Gigi, Naruko said thoughtfully. Hey Q, do you think I could summon the scroll with the spare communicator in it? I think it's possible, but it would be better to use my chakra. The distance between Wave and Konoha is quite large. If you use my chakra, it won't leave you worn out. I'll provide the energy, you just need to guide it, the Baijuu replied calmly. Alright, let's do it, said Naruko, already sensing Kyuubi's chakra begin to flow through her system. She held out her hand, palm facing up, and focused on the scroll that contained what she needed. She directed the chakra into her hand, visualizing the scroll materializing. After a moment of intense concentration and just as she was about to give up, a sudden surge of chakra pulsed through her, followed by a popping sound as the scroll appeared in her hand. Naruko nearly dropped it, startled by the success and the effort it took. Phew. That used up more energy than I expected, Naruko said, catching her breath. But at least it worked. What just happened, kid? Asked Anko, clearly curious. She had felt the faint ripple of Kyuubi's chakra and noted that Kakashi had sensed it too, judging by how alert he suddenly became. I just teleported a scroll Gigi needed, from my house to here. Sounds easy in theory, but it required a ton of chakra. I had to use Q's chakra, or I'd be completely drained by now. I'm just a bit winded, Naruko replied with a smile. The Hokage, still listening through the communicator, spoke up again. Did you get it, Naruko-chan? asked the Hokage. Got it, Gigi. Give me a few minutes to set it up, Naruko said as she began unsealing the item, drawing everyone's attention. From the other's perspective, it looked like a small speaker with a circular slot at the top. It was lined with complex seals unfamiliar to most of them. Naruko smiled, seeing everyone's curiosity. Eager to demonstrate, she removed the communicator from her ear and placed it into the slot on the box. There was a clicking sound, signaling it was properly secured. She channeled a bit of chakra into it, and the device glowed briefly before dimming. Testing, testing. Can you hear me, Gigi? Naruko asked. The others looked at her in disbelief, until the Hokage's voice responded from the box. Loud and clear, Naruko-chan. Looks like your backup communication system works perfectly. This will make it easier to relay instructions to everyone, the Hokage said warmly. Hokage-sama? Stammered Kakashi, stunned to be hearing the Hokage's voice from so far away. Judging by your voice, that must be Kakashi, correct? The Hokage asked with a touch of humor. Hi. How is this even possible? Asked the astonished Jounin, staring at the device in awe. You can thank Naruko-chan for that. We can go over the technical details later. For now, let's get down to business. Can everyone hear me clearly? There was a chorus of hi from those present, except for the unconscious Sasuke and Sai. Sakura was downstairs assisting Tsunami in the kitchen and thus wasn't present. Good. This will help with issuing mission directives. Team 7, under Hatake Kakashi, will continue guarding and supporting Tazuna. Due to the confirmed appearance of Momochi Zabuza and his partner, the mission rank is being elevated from C to A. Understood, Kakashi? Hi, Hokage-sama, Kakashi affirmed with a nod, already formulating a plan for training and security once his team had recovered. Mitarashi Anko and the Tokubutsu Brigade, you will locate and secure Gato's base. You are authorized to reclaim any resources or valuables he may have taken, but make sure to return anything that rightfully belongs to the citizens of Wave. All additional documentation and assets are to be brought back to Konoha for review. Understood? Understood, Hokage-sama, Anko replied cheerfully, while Naruko excitedly rubbed her hands at the thought of having extra resources for her future inventions. Excellent. Kakashi, all of Naruko's tools, inventions, and techniques are classified as S-rank secrets. Their disclosure is strictly forbidden. Understood, Hokage-sama. Do you have any further instructions for my team? Kakashi asked. None for now. You all have your orders. Naruko-chan, Yakumo-chan, Anko, please proceed with caution. Over and out, the Hokage concluded. The communicator crackled and went silent. Naruko removed the device, returned it to her ear, resealed the box into the scroll, and stored it using the seal on her palm. Alright, we've got our orders. So, when do we start, Anko Nichin? She asked her adoptive sister. Anko scratched her chin and thought. We should lay low for a few days. Yakumo will be busy taking care of the injured. Once Team 7 is back on their feet, we can begin locating Gato's base and shutting it down. She paused and then added with a playful smirk, after collecting anything useful, of course. Naruko and Yakumo grinned in agreement. Kakashi noticed and couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. The 3-day wait for Sasuke to fully recover from his injuries passed slowly for both teams. After receiving their updated orders from the Hokage, the Tokubutsu Brigade and Kakashi held a brief strategy meeting. While they didn't finalize any solid plans, the discussion helped set a foundation for the operation ahead. Kakashi decided to begin training his team as soon as they were ready. The next morning, he led Sakura and Sai into the woods to focus on improving their chakra control and refining their taijutsu in preparation for a possible confrontation. Meanwhile, Naruko, Yakumo, and Anko explored the town of Wave in search of information on Gato and his group. What they uncovered disturbed them greatly. Gato had a strong grip over the island. The townspeople had been stripped of their property rights, forced to rent their own homes, and required to surrender nearly all of their modest earnings each day. Food was limited, and morale was at an all-time low. Naruko even frowned deeply upon witnessing children scavenging in garbage bins, clearly hungry. What troubled them most was the discovery that several women from the Wave region were being held at Gato's base. Rumors suggested they were to be transported to other countries and sold into forced labor or other illicit operations. Naruko was visibly upset, but, thanks to Anko and Yakumo, she was calmed before acting on impulse and jeopardizing the mission. On the third day, Sasuke awoke feeling fully recovered. After Yakumo gave him a clean bill of health, Kakashi wasted no time dragging him into the forest for training. As a result, Sasuke had little chance to ask questions about the Tokubutsu Brigade's presence. The team hoped Kakashi would later brief him on the situation to ensure the overall plan remained intact. While Kakashi was busy training his students, Anko and Yakumo voted for Naruko to stay behind and guard Tazuna, the bridge builder, while they continued scouting for Gato's stronghold. On the fourth day, Anko and Yakumo returned to Tazuna's house with important information. Gato's base is located in the forest on the opposite side of the island, Anko explained, sipping a warm cup of tea kindly offered by Tsunami. The cold, rainy weather outside made the drink especially welcome. Thanks to Yakumo's genjutsu, we were able to assess their numbers and check on the status of Zabuza and his apprentice. What did you find out, Anko Nichin? Naruko asked eagerly. Everyone in Team 7, including Kakashi, leaned in to listen. Gato's base is a 3-story mansion. He has around 400 hired fighters, mostly bandits and mercenaries. They're not particularly well trained, but there are a lot of them, Anko began. Zabuza is being cared for by his apprentice, Haku. He's the same individual who posed as a hunter nin during our earlier encounter. The captives, women from the village, are being held in a secured area in the basement. There are 4 guards watching over them at all times. We didn't attempt a rescue, as it wasn't part of our current plan, she added before taking another sip. Yakumo spoke up next, clearly disheartened. We also learned that Gato intends to betray Zabuza after the bridge builder is dealt with. His plan is to ambush Zabuza and Haku during or after their assignment. It seems this is a pattern for Gato. He hires skilled fighters and then eliminates them once their job is done. Naruko frowned thoughtfully. This sounds like a serious situation. Even if we defeat Zabuza and Haku, we'll still have to face Gato and his entire crew. Kakashi nodded. Our best approach may be to target Gato first, before he has the chance to launch any further attacks. Zabuza may not be a threat right now due to his condition. If we inform him of Gato's betrayal, we might even convince him to abandon the mission. Sasuke, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. Why don't we just take them all on and end this? We have enough people. Sasuke-kun could handle them easily, Sakura added confidently. The rest of the group looked at the pair with mild disbelief. Sai responded in his usual flat tone, which somehow still carried a sarcastic edge. Of course. Uchiha-san can handle it alone. After all, he performed so well during the last encounter with Zabuza, he remarked, expression unreadable. Naruko stifled a giggle at the jab. Sakura noticed and snapped at her. What are you laughing at, Naruko? Sasuke-kun could take them on if he wanted to. Naruko gave her a calm but firm look. Sakura, I thought you were the top kunoichi in our class. But that doesn't mean you should ignore facts. Sasuke was seriously hurt during our last battle. It took Yakumo 3 days to treat his injuries. And you froze up during the fight. So how exactly is your statement logical? Sakura went quiet, recognizing the truth in Naruko's words. But Naruko continued, not with anger, but with concern. You have potential, Sakura. But relying entirely on someone else to save you isn't going to help you grow. Shinobi life isn't easy. We work as a team to protect each other, but that also means training and preparing so you can stand on your own. Right now, you're depending too much on others. You're smart, but you need to start acting like the kunoichi you were meant to be. Kakashi intervened gently. Naruko, that's enough. Let's be respectful. Naruko nodded. I understand. But I only said those things because I believe in her. Sakura is part of our team, and I want to see her succeed. She's strong enough to become one of the best, like Lady Tsunade, she just needs to believe in herself and put in the effort. Naruko offered Sakura a small smile, and her tone softened. You can do it. I know you can. Sakura looked up, eyes slightly misty, and nodded. Thank you, Naruko. Naruko smiled warmly before standing up. All right, I'm going to turn in early. We've got a lot of training tomorrow. Good night, everyone. With that, she headed upstairs. Silence settled over the room as her words lingered in everyone's minds. Most reflected on what had been said, except for Sasuke, who simply crossed his arms and returned to his usual quiet demeanor. At the bottom of the stairs, unnoticed by the others, a young boy listened quietly, his expression thoughtful. Kakashi felt genuinely proud of Naruko in that moment. While he was slightly concerned that one of his genin had gotten hurt during the exchange, he couldn't deny the truth in Naruko's words. Since the formation of Team 7, he had been working tirelessly to unite the group and help them grow stronger together. He had no issues with Sai, despite the occasional sarcastic remark that earned him playful reprimands from Sasuke and Sakura, because he generally functioned well within the team. Sasuke, however, presented more of a challenge. Incredibly gifted, perhaps even rivaling his older brother Itachi in talent, Sasuke often isolated himself, focused solely on personal growth and goals. He struggled to see the team as anything but a distraction from his ambitions. Sakura had become one of Kakashi's personal missions. He made various efforts to guide her beyond her early, more distracted tendencies, from serious training sessions to one-on-one conversations, but nothing seemed to reach her. That is, until Naruko spoke up. What Naruko said struck a chord, igniting a new sense of determination in Sakura. Kakashi noticed the shift immediately. She was now beginning to approach her responsibilities with genuine resolve. Encouraged, Kakashi silently committed to nurturing that spark further. Later, Naruko returned to her room, letting out a quiet sigh as she closed the door behind her. She walked over to the open window and looked out at the calm waters surrounding the land of waves. She hadn't intended to upset Sakura earlier, but the conversation had touched on something important to her. Sakura's idealized view of what it meant to be a kunoichi had pushed Naruko to speak out. Though they had never gotten along, not even during their days at the academy, Naruko still felt compelled to reach out as a fellow ninja of the hidden leaf. Taking a deep breath, Naruko looked up at the sky. The night was beautiful and peaceful, a perfect time to fly. With a practiced leap out the window, she activated her telekinetic ability and gently hovered in place before soaring into the sky. Among all her abilities, Naruko enjoyed flying the most. Her chakra Majutsu bloodline granted her a wide array of skills, but nothing matched the freedom and tranquility of soaring high above the world. The cool breeze on her face and the vast, starlit sky filled her with a sense of peace and clarity. After reaching a comfortable height, she settled into a floating lotus position, letting her thoughts wander as she gazed at the twinkling lights below in the town of Wave. "How are you feeling, Kit?" came the voice of the nine-tailed fox within her mind. Though he already sensed her emotions, the gesture was thoughtful. "I'm all right. I just don't like losing my composure," Naruko replied honestly. "Understandable. What you did earlier was needed. Maybe a bit strong in tone, but it made an impact," the fox said, his voice calm. "By the way, I was thinking, after this mission, why not visit that island we talked about?" "You mean your secret hideout?" she asked with a faint smile. "Yes. It's not far, just past Tea Country. With your hoverboard, you and your teammates could make the trip in an hour or two at most. I'll need to get approval from Gigi first, but now that I can contact him remotely, that shouldn't be too difficult." "Good. I'll head back to rest for now. Wake me if something interesting happens," the fox said with a soft chuckle before their connection quieted. Naruko stayed in the air a while longer, letting the peaceful night calm her thoughts. She had grown strong enough to maintain her flight for hours, even when carrying someone with her. After some time, she descended gently, landing on the quiet pier below. It was still early, and the serenity of the night inspired her. With a quiet thought, she summoned her silver flute and began to play. The melody that flowed from it was soft and filled with emotion, calm yet tinged with something deeper. Not far away, Inari sat alone in his room, quietly weighed down by feelings of uncertainty. He remembered a time when he was joyful and full of life, always eager to laugh and play. But ever since Gato's rise to power, things had changed. He struggled to see hope in their situation, and that despair often spilled into his words. He hadn't truly smiled in a long time, except around his grandfather, Tazuna, or his mother, Tsunami, and even those were smiles worn like masks. As he sat in silence, a gentle sound drifted through his window. It was a melody, graceful, filled with longing and quiet strength. It made him pause. Somehow, it reminded him of better times, of moments when the world still felt kind. Curious, he looked outside and spotted someone sitting at the pier's edge. From the long coat and golden hair, he quickly realized it was the girl who had arrived with the shinobi team. Naruko. His expression shifted into a frown. Why were they even helping? Couldn't they see it was pointless? Couldn't they understand there was no hope? Determined to say his piece, he grabbed his hat from the cabinet, placed it on his head, and stepped out of his room. He passed by his mother and grandfather without a word, not even noticing their concerned looks, or the quiet conversation happening between the Konoha team members planning how to protect his grandfather. He made his way outside, heading toward the pier with quiet resolve, unaware of the gentle, worried gaze his mother cast after him as he disappeared into the night. Naruko was enjoying the peaceful stillness of the pier as she gently played her flute. Ever since she discovered her natural talent for the instrument, it had become one of her favorite ways to relax. The melody she played now was one of her own creations, a soft, heartfelt tune filled with the longing for connection, for the warmth of a family she had never truly known. That peaceful moment was gently interrupted by the voice of a child. "You should just leave with the rest of your team. Gato is too powerful." Naruko turned and saw Inari standing there with a serious expression. Thanks to Sasuke's curiosity and a conversation with their client, Naruko already knew Inari's story and the pain behind his hardened gaze. She understood the boy's frustration, but she could never agree with the sense of defeat that seemed to surround him. "What do you mean, Inari?" Naruko asked kindly, pretending not to know, wanting the boy to open up and speak his heart. "You're all going to lose," Inari said, voice cracking with emotion. "Nobody can stand up to Gato. Everyone who tries ends up gone. If you know what's best for you, you'll just go home. You don't have any right to come here and act like you're saving anyone." Naruko looked at him for a moment, then returned her gaze to the calm waters. Inari, upset at being ignored, was about to speak again when Naruko's soft yet determined voice reached his ears. "You know, Inari," she began gently, "we didn't come here to be heroes. Shinobi aren't always seen that way. The life we lead isn't easy. Every mission we go on is full of challenges." Her voice was calm, but filled with meaning. "Yes, we're trained to face difficulties, but that doesn't make us invincible. It's just the path we've chosen. I know it might seem strange from your point of view, since you're not a shinobi. But you're right about one thing," she added, looking over at him. "Shinobi can be heroes, depending on what they choose to do. Would you like to hear a true story?" Naruko patted the wooden plank beside her. Inari hesitated, but eventually sat down next to her, staring out at the water. He didn't notice Naruko's quiet smile before she turned to do the same. "Your grandfather and mother told us about Keiza," she said, pausing to let Inari absorb her words. He flinched slightly at the mention, but said nothing. Naruko took that as a sign to continue. "Your stepfather was incredibly brave. He stood up for what he believed in and worked to protect the people of the Wave Country, including your mother, grandfather, and especially you. It wasn't easy. But he gave everything to protect what mattered most to him." Naruko took a moment before continuing. "That's exactly what your grandfather is doing right now. He traveled all the way to Konoha, even though it was risky, just to ask for help. He even had to stretch the truth a little because he couldn't afford to hire a large team of highly ranked shinobi. That takes a lot of courage." "But why?" Inari whispered. "Why would he risk so much?" "Because he loves you all very much," Naruko replied warmly. "Just like Keiza cared for you, your grandfather wants a better future for this village and for you. That's why he's building that bridge, to create hope. To give this place a chance to grow strong and free." She paused and smiled again, noticing Inari's posture changing slightly, his expression more thoughtful now. "You know, Inari, let me tell you another story. A long time ago in Konoha, something truly extraordinary happened. The village was facing an overwhelming threat, the kind of challenge that would shake anyone's heart. But the leader at that time, the fourth Hokage, made a great sacrifice to protect the village. Instead of trying to erase the danger completely, he found a way to contain it safely inside a newborn child, trusting that the child would grow up and find strength through kindness and love." "Why would he do that?" Inari asked with wide eyes, clearly fascinated. "Because he cared deeply about everyone in the village," Naruko explained. "He did what he believed was right, even if it meant making a big personal sacrifice. That's what true leaders do, they protect the ones they love, no matter the cost." "So that's what my father and grandfather were doing?" Inari asked slowly, as if trying to piece it all together. Naruko nodded. "Exactly. Your father believed in hope and stood strong for those he cared about. Your grandfather is doing the same, building something lasting for the future. You have strong people in your life, Inari. And that same strength is inside of you too." They sat together in silence, taking in the peaceful night air. Naruko lifted her flute again and began to play a cheerful, uplifting melody that floated through the night breeze, bringing a smile to Inari's face. Aniki," Inari asked curiously, using the nickname he'd given her affectionately. "What were you doing before you came to the pier? I didn't see you around when I was looking from my window." Naruko grinned at him. "I was flying," she said simply. Inari blinked. "Flying? Seriously? You can fly?" "Yup," she said, playfully flicking her wrist. Suddenly, Inari floated into the air, laughing in surprise and delight. "Want to go for a little ride?" Naruko asked. "Yes," Inari said excitedly. Naruko stood, her flute vanishing into thin air, leaving the boy wide-eyed in awe. She rose up to float beside him and smiled. Hope you're not afraid of heights. With that, Naruko and Inari soared into the sky, laughter and joy echoing through the air as the night sky sparkled above them. Villagers looked up, wondering what kind of magic was painting the sky with such happiness. And with that, we've come to the end of this fanfiction. I hope you enjoyed the story and found it worth the read. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Thank you all so much for your support, it truly means a lot. Stay tuned for more adventures, and as always, stay awesome. Grateful. 6 Path Weeb.